But let me go on the other phone line and speak to someone, Nate George. He's MP for Ningo Pram Pram. Sam, you were at a court today, weren't you?
I wasn't at the court, but I joined in spirit. I later came to Parliament and joined the Public Accounts Committee.
Okay, so you are the one who Frank Anodompre is targeting. He says you boycott the sitting of Parliament. You said you're doing so in solidarity with your colleagues, and yet you quickly rush to committee meetings. He hasn't said exactly what his suspicions are, but I'm sure for those who know how Parliament works, you know what he's pointing to. Why are you going for committee meetings and leaving Parliament?
Anodompre should pay attention better next time in Parliament. Because when we served notice, we said we're going to boycott plenary sittings. We didn't say we're going to boycott the business of Parliament. The business of Parliament includes plenary sittings and committee meetings. And so next time you should pay attention. At times when we're talking, they don't listen. And so when they don't pay attention, then they set their own questions and answer their own questions. We said we will boycott plenary every day that they take our colleagues or any of our colleagues to court. We would boycott the plenary sittings and we would not cooperate with them in the House. It is up to them. I mean, if the government decides that prosecution of an MP who has been duly elected twice in the space of 3 years by his people is not clear enough signal to them, and they want to persecute him. This is not a prosecution, it's a persecution. And the courts think in the judiciary working in cahoots with the executive think that the best way to go about this is on a day-by-day process. When NAM1 has not finished its prosecution almost 4 or 5 years after the government started that prosecution, when the Kwesi prosecution case is in limbo, but they think that they can prosecute Jachi Kwesi on a daily basis, we would not go to plenary any day that they take him to court. They have to live with it.
But why choose plenary and not committee? Why not just the entire business of the day?
Because at the end of the day, we are working for the Ghanaian people. We will not come and sit in plenary and help you get the numbers to do your government business. Government business which is even non-existent. Let's put it on record. Parliament has been sitting, this is about the 8th week or so that we've just ended. There's been no proper parliamentary business. And when you ask Anodompe, why don't they form quorum? It is because the MPP members of Parliament have boycotted Parliament and are running like little chickens behind their mother, Mahmoud Bawumia. They are busy campaigning with Bawumia and Kennedy Japan and Alan Tremanting and have abandoned Parliament in its entirety. We say on the day where you take our colleague to court, we would stand in solidarity with him and boycott plenary. If there's a committee sitting at the time after the court hearing, we will take part in the committee sitting. But on a day where business of government is being done, government MPs on the government side have abandoned Parliament and abandoned their committees and are running behind Bawumia, lining up like ducklings behind the mother duck to endorse him. And they rather want to turn around and ask us why we are not in the chamber. We should come and sit in the chamber and help government do its business when the government MPs don't think that government has any sensible business to do in the chamber. Anodompe should bring his MPs into the chamber and form quorum. It's a challenge we are throwing to him. He cannot do it. Because if he does it, he'll be seen to be hurting Bawumia's campaign. Because all the MPs have told their line and are following Bawumia.
He himself is a Bawumia campaigner, but he has also made the point that you should not, and I'm sure you have been in government before, you know that government MPs rarely make time to be in the chamber. So that is normal.
So what excuse is that government MPs rarely make time to be in the chamber? Are you telling the constituents who queue to vote for them that they made an error of voting for them to be in government?
No.
I'm telling government MPs not to be in the chamber.
It's a constitutional dictate. You made MPs ministers, so they have to go and serve their ministries.
But that is why ministers are supposed to be able to schedule their time enough to show face in the chamber on a daily basis. The Constitution says that if you miss 15 sittings of Parliament without any excuse or any plausible reason, your seat will be declared vacant. It doesn't give an exception to whether you are a member of Parliament, alone on the minority side or on the majority side, or whether you're a minister of state. And by the way, out of their 137 plus 1, how many of them are government ministers?
And since you've mentioned the 15-day, I'm just going to move in there now. Your side risks losing 137 seats if you continue to be absent without approval from the speaker. He has already made a ruling on that. It appears you can't be bothered.
We are daring everybody. If they like, they should declare all our 137 seats vacant and hold 137 by elections. Let's see what will happen in this country. Look, we must begin to stand up to the tyranny of power and tell the Akufo-Addo government that they cannot determine what happens in the NDC and what happens in this country alone. They hold power in trust for us. So they should declare all the 137 NDC seats vacant. They should move a motion and declare 137 seats vacant in this country, and let's see what will happen in this country.
Are you
but
not
the president, he doesn't want to finish his term of office here.
Are you not setting a bad precedent, Sam, that in the future,
the precedent being set here, Umaru Sanda, is the despotic persecution of a two-time duly elected member of parliament by an intransigent president who is behaving like an over-pampered spoiled kid because his wishes and tantrums in Asin North were not upheld by the people of Asin North. He would do whatever he would do, move hell and high water in connivance with persons in the judiciary to abuse the judicial process. That is what we should call the president out for. Tell me which act of corruption under Akufo-Addo has he authorized his attorney general to go and start a daily prosecution of? He can't, because he's the mother serpent of corruption. And we must call the president out and say that he who was sold to us, he was sold to us as a defender of civil liberties, as a doing of the rule of law, has turned out to be worse than the most despotic military ruler Ghana has ever seen. He is a persecutor of civil liberties. He abuses the public institutions of state. We must call our president out and tell him to his face that he's a tyrant and a despot, and say that we would arise up to him, because that is what our national anthem enjoins us to do. It asks us to resist oppressors' rule. Akufo-Addo will go down in the history of this country as the worst president and most undemocratic person in the history of our country. And we must resist him at every turn. If it means us losing 137 seats in parliament, they should declare the 137 seats vacant. Let's have a by-election. After all, that will bring a lot of development to our 137 NDC constituencies, because that's their stock in trade. They should declare our seats vacant quickly, and let's have by-election.
Which means if you got on the 14th day of absence, you would not be seen in the chamber the following day, because you are ready to face the consequences of whatever happens, even though the speaker has warned you.
The 137 of us have decided and are definite in our mind. We are not going to the chamber any day they take any of our colleagues to court and persecute them. They should eat the chamber.
In the future, if you form
after the 15 days, they should declare our seats vacant. We'll have 137 by elections, but it will bring accelerated development to the 137 NDC constituency. They'll start fixing the roads in our constituency, so they should go ahead. In fact, they shouldn't wait for the 15 days. After 5 days, they should declare our seats vacant. We will contest the by-election.
In the future, if you form a government and you find the actions of some ministers of Akufo-Addo or any of his appointees unlawful, or you believe seem to be unlawful, and you start prosecuting them, and they decide to pay you back in your own coins, you would not whine, would you?
First and foremost, let us have notice. There are a number of them who will be prosecuted by the next Mahama administration because of the blatant stealing that they are doing, so they should prepare for it.
Don't mention names so that we can proceed.
I won't mention names,
Good.
But they should begin to renovate in Sawam, because we will prosecute them. But that in itself will not mean that we will be as irresponsible as they are to abandon the work of Parliament. And I hope to be a member of Parliament and a member of government in the 9th Parliament from 2025. But I would not abandon the duties Ningo Prampram have given to me to go and be running after a presidential aspirant like they are doing with Bawumia.
No, don't. I want you to focus on what you are doing. If they do same to you, you are not going to complain.
They will have no basis, because we will be prosecuting in accordance with the law.
Which is what they are doing in this particular instance. The Attorney General has powers.
Of a daily trial of Chachi. Can anybody give me the logic and the rationale for it?
The High Court is what the High Court decided it, not the government. And the High Court is the Judiciary.
The High Court only decided on the request of the Attorney General.
Yet, if you fail to make a counter argument that would be heard by the judge, and the judge decides to hear the other argument, that's up to you. You should blame your legal team.
We have made logical and legally sound counter argument.
It doesn't matter. The High Court found it wobbly.
This persecution is sponsored by the executive and the judiciary.
Of course, the prosecution is always sponsored by the executive and the judiciary. But when you go to court, it leaves the powers of the executive and now becomes the judiciary's job. And I'm saying that you
judiciary ought not be a
sponsor
of persecution.
No, but if you fail to
be a fair arbiter.
No, but if you
so
fail,
the judiciary must act as such. The judiciary of Ghana must act as such.
But
it must act as a fair arbiter and not as an appendage of the executive.
That is what you see the judiciary. That's what you see the judiciary to be.
Oh, not what I see. What Ghanaians see. Go take your microphones on the street and ask, why is it that every time a CPI is done, the competition for the most corrupt institution in Ghana is a struggle between the police and the judiciary? Ask yourself why. The judiciary should be doing introspection. Look, we need to begin to sanitize our institutions of state, and we can only do it when we begin to tell truth to them without fear or favor.
All right. Thank you for speaking to us. That's Honorable Samuel Nate George.